I feel triggered just listening to this.
Exactly.
I feel like we're in a loosey-goosey mood today, collectively.
I know.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
And what was that voice?
Told you I'd try something different every time.
I love it. But more importantly, this is Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where imperfect people have imperfect conversations. I'm Christina.
And I'm Lauren.
And I don't minimize anything.
Me neither. In fact, I exaggerate all my shit.
Maximalization. Is that a word? Maximization. There we go.
Yes.
I'm all about maximizing, never minimizing.
Yep.
Just kidding. We like to joke around.
Yeah, if you've listened to an episode, you realize that we minimize a lot.
Yeah, and so luckily for y'all, we're going to be talking about minimization today.
Mm-hmm.
But first, Lauren, how are you doing right now?
So I'm doing okay, but I did realize that I forgot last time something that I wanted to mention on the podcast that was going on at work. I'm assuming that it's going to be okay to talk about because, again, I don't tell my work people about this podcast. And, of course, I mean, I'm not going to use people's names or anything like that.
Right.
So we got a message the beginning of last week from one of my coworkers, and she was just saying, she was like, I just wanted to send this to everybody, not because I'm trying to, like, hide anything or whatever, but I just, I don't want to have to tell this story to 12 times to each person individually.
Oh, my God. Can't even imagine.
Well, she has 5 kids, and she said her oldest son, an adult child, tried to kill himself by taking pills.
Oh, fuck.
And so she was saying, I'm probably, I don't know if I'm going to be in the office at all this week. If I do, I might have to, immediately take a phone call or leave or something like that.
Yeah.
And, based on hearing her talk about it, saying oh, well, he's obviously first in the hospital and then they're going to transfer him to, this behavioral health spot. And I was like, oh, I've been there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it was just, I don't know. It was just kind of hearing that was like, okay, I'm ready to process that all over again. Yep.
So you didn't say anything to her?
No, and I did because she was saying, I am super open about it. If you want to ask me any questions, that's fine. I have no problem talking about it. And I did think off and on, I was like, I don't know. I was like, would it make her feel better to be like, hey, I've been there, but I don't have very good things to say about my time there.
Oh, shit.
But also more of that was, again, where I was in that stupid holding cell where he's going to go from, an actual hospital room where they're treating him to when they say it's
So
cleared.
this is the same hospital that you went to the psych ward in?
Yeah.
Okay. That was in September, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to the bonus episode where we talk about Lauren going to the psych ward, go back and listen. It's a real roller coaster.
It's easy to find because it is appropriately titled, Lauren's going to the psych ward.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't want to keep people guessing,
Yep. But yeah, so there was that, and it just happened on top of that, which, made the whole week just kind of tough to get through, was we have this new coworker, and she's an older woman. She's probably I'd say late 50s maybe early 50s. I don't know. She's really sweet. She's been very nice, and she comes in, always in a good mood and everything like that. But, and, we've talked about this too, coworkers just always talking about their diets and crap like that.
Oh my God. It's getting worse lately, I feel like.
Yes.
Because everyone online is talking about that these days, but I feel like nothing is changing about diet culture. If anything, it's just ramping up.
Yeah, and, because I have a small office, I feel like, maybe I've been lucky so far that nobody's really that terrible about it. A few people have mentioned that they're on diets sometimes, but, one of them, she was saying my husband wants us to go on it, and she clearly was not excited, the first day that she was eating a salad at lunch. We're like, how's your diet going? And she's like, I hate it. So she's just been kind of funny. But this woman, and she's not on a diet, but the conversation, or the, now that I said the wrong word, I am just, I just like totally stop myself.
Like the
The
comments.
comments.
The comments, yeah.
Yeah. The comments that she's making sometimes, like the one that particularly got to me is a bunch of us are sitting around on our lunch break, and she'd had to run an errand, and she comes in, and she's standing up with her lunch, and we were saying, like, oh, like we've got space at the table, if there's not a chair, we can pull one up. And she's like, no, I should be standing.
Oh my God.
You can't sit down for lunch because
I feel triggered just listening to this.
Exactly. When she said that, I was just kind of like, I don't have a response. I almost want to leave the room.
Oh my God. Yeah, I've been noticing stuff like that a lot lately. Like, even people who are close to me, like, we can't have a fast food meal without them saying something like, oh, I shouldn't be having this, or, oh, this is a nice treat. It's innocuous comments like that you don't realize will trigger people, but it's just feeding into the diet culture. And like I said, it feels like it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, or the worst, when people say something like, oh, I guess I can be bad today.
I just want to give all those people a hug and be like, you're allowed to have a treat.
I know.
And I realize that fear comes from a place of black and white thinking. Like, if I'm not dieting, then I'm going off the rails and I'm out of control. Because I've been there, and I'm still getting out of that.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe this is just me and where I'm coming from, but, a few comments from this woman, and immediately, like, I'm worried because, I mean, first of all, she's just normal size. She is not overweight in any way. She's probably one of the smaller people in the office.
And weight is not even, like, a deciding factor,
But what I first, like, noticed when she started is, that's why I said, like, I think she's early 50s, because I was surprised. I felt like she looked a lot older than I expected. Like, she has, like, really deep wrinkles, and I mean, part of it, I noticed that she wears a ton of makeup, but that's immediately what I was thinking when she's saying all this stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, that shit ages you fast. So what if, what if she actually has a problem, or at least has in the past and dealt with it for many years? I'm like, oh man, I hope she's okay.
Someday maybe we'll do an episode on fighting the urge to diagnose other people, because
that's a good one, actually.
I think about that all the time. I have to fight to tell myself, like, okay, you don't know what's going on with this person. You might think they're going on through what are these words I'm spitting out? You might think they're going through something, but it could be anything, right? It could be stress, personal stress. It could be a health issue, not directly tied to mental illness. Or, it could be mental illness. Or, like, the beginnings of an eating disorder. It could be.
Because that's, too, sometimes the people that have been through it recognize it first and are like,
Yeah. I was just reading a Reddit thread this morning about the trend of brides dieting for their wedding.
Yeah.
And I guess the New York Times posted this article about how someone got an eating disorder once she started starving to fit into her wedding dress. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's an issue, but this has been going on forever.
Yeah.
And, like, I had to unfollow someone last year because she wouldn't stop posting about her wedding weight loss journey. And, like, someone on Reddit encapsulated my thoughts perfectly. They were like, why would I want to look like anything other than what I look like every day on my wedding? Yeah. Like, this is what I look like. That's a very good
point. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought at least similar to that, too. It's like, why do you put all this effort into a single day? Is that what you think? That it's just like, I am going to be perfect on this day, and then I'm just going to go back to being me?
Yeah, it's really sad, and it feels like an uphill battle. I did something fun this week. Cool. Well, so first of all, my week was shitty. I had to cover for someone at work unexpectedly 3 days in a row from from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And my normal working hours are 8 to 4. Okay. So, like, for 3 days in a row, I had to get up at 4:30, and so my sleep schedule was fucked. And then, Brett had to drive me because I don't have a car, and I don't like riding my motorcycle at night, like, before the sun comes out, especially if it's, like, 30 degrees.
Yeah, good point.
So, like, both of our mental healths have suffered this week because of that, just by not getting enough sleep. Like, I don't think we realize how much sleep affects our mental health. At least I don't. Yeah.
I mean, that too, I feel like we've hit a point, I mean, teenage years with re-energized meatball kitten mode.
Yeah.
We've had a few nights where he's just like up and tearing around the house to the point where I said the other day, I was like, some days I want to be like, would anybody like a slightly used cat for sale?
Oh my God. Yeah, there's only so much you can do about sleep deprivation caused by cats.
Yeah.
But yeah, I say all that because it's been a really shitty week and I've been trying to find the positives, but it's been really hard. So we're recording this on Sunday. Last Monday, I connected with a friend that I met in Austin in 2013, I want to say. So I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I used to be a photographer. Like I used to have a photography business in Austin.
Oh, wow.
And it didn't last very long because it's a very competitive field. And
Yeah,
it was
that's
mostly
fair.
like a hobby for me. I met a lot of people. I would randomly connect with models on Facebook and Craigslist and like shoot them for fun. And Laura, this friend I'm talking about, was one of them. So fast forward like 10 years since we last saw each other. She has a sister who lives in my neck of the woods, and her sister's pregnant, and she wanted to know if we could do maternity photos while she was visiting her.
Oh, yeah, I saw part of the shoot. I didn't, realize.
Yeah. So literally,
Okay.
like, I came home from work and then ran into the woods with these people, like, and took pictures in the cold. And it was so fun. We were, like, crawling through thorns and all
Yeah,
this
the setting
stuff.
looked really cool. Yeah.
But, you know, when I started, I was feeling really nervous and, like, a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, I haven't taken pictures like this in years. I don't know if I'm still good. I don't know if they're going to turn out good. But then the fear of failure started, like, disappearing the more fun I had.
Cool.
I was just like, this is something that I haven't felt in a long time. Just working with creative people to create something. I wrote in my journal that night, like, I am happiest when I'm surrounded by creative people doing creative things. And I think I forget
makes a
that
lot of
sometimes.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, now that I know this about you, if we meet in person when it's not negative 20 degrees, then I might have to commission you. I had a friend that was trying to get into pet photography for a while. And she did well, I saw some of them, but she was, like 4 or 5 hours away from me, and we tried to plan a few times and it never worked because when I saw that, I was like, I want a photo shoot with Pico, so I always have like these pictures.
Oh my God, yeah, anytime, dude. But yeah, the rest of the week really sucked, and I've been struggling to see the point of the hustle, for lack of a better word. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I did get some good news yesterday that I won't share yet.
Okay.
But before I got that good news, I was feeling really depressed. Nothing that I was doing was producing results. And I reached this point where I was just like, okay, maybe instead of fighting so hard, just like sit back and breathe and accept that you are where you are right now, and it's not going to change instantly. And you're making steps to change your circumstances, but it's going to take time. And in the meantime, don't stress so much. Like, just let it go. Do the best you can where you are. And I just experienced this weird moment of acceptance. And then I got good news later in the day. So I don't know. That was a nice moment.
Yeah.
And I realize I'm being very vague right now, but
I know. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Maybe in a few weeks. Who knows?
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling ready to talk about minimization. Yeah. I keep wanting to say minimalization.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Hi, I'm Christina. I can't talk. Welcome to the podcast.
I was going to say, hi, I'm Lauren, and I can talk, but you know what? I can't either.
So this week's episode is a poll episode where we throw up where we throw up.
I caught that too. I wasn't going to say anything.
Every 2 weeks, we post. How about that? We post a question, and our listeners send in answers, and then we talk about it. So today we'll be talking about the question we put up last week. Which do you want to read it to the lovely listeners?
Absolutely. So it is, what do you minimize? Why do you believe it isn't valid? And what would it take to do so?
This is a really good question. And I've been thinking about it all week.
I'm really curious about the end part in particular. Yeah. I hope people answered that well.
Well, so what inspired you to make this question? Like, what do you minimize in your life, and why do you believe it isn't valid?
I minimize just about everything about my mental health. And I don't know if it's because my family, like didn't talk about it very much. So I feel like only like physical health problems are quote unquote real. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I've always done that. And honestly, I even minimize like my physical health. Yeah. Because I I don't know. I'm not someone. Well, I always thought that I wasn't somebody that really gets sick at all. Mm-hmm. And I did kind of realize at some point that I was like, maybe I do. I just pretend like it's nothing. There is, I will tell a story of when I was in my early 20s and I was a server at a restaurant. Obviously, it's a time which, we've talked about this a lot, where I can't afford any health insurance. So, got nothing like that going on. I just know that I woke up in the middle of the night one time, and I was so cold that, like my entire body was shivering and I could not stop, and I couldn't even stand up to walk to the bathroom. Like I had to crawl because my legs would not even stay under me. It was so bad.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then, and I got back and I just, could not get warm. I mean, I have, 4 layers on and I'm crawled under, all my blankets. And so, finally enough that I could sleep and I'd wake up, in this pool of sweat. And so I called out of work that day, but I was scheduled to work that day, 2 double shifts after that, and then a morning shift after that before I would get a day off. Ugh. And so I called off that day, and I just slept and felt at least alive when I woke up. And so I just, the next 2 days I went into work and I would work, and maybe, about halfway through, then I'd start to feel really terrible again and be like, wow, I thought when I went in that I could do this, and God, I'm, clawing to make it barely. And it wasn't until a week later that I was just like, oh, I probably straight up had the flu, and
sounds like
mostly just worked through it. because I'd wake up in the morning and be like, I feel okay. I guess I got to go into work.
Well, again, not to blame all of our problems on society, but society doesn't really smile on people who call out sick.
Exactly, especially in a service type job.
Yeah, in America. That's the experience here. I know, I worked in the service industry for 8 years, and people would work sick all the time. It's truly terrifying, especially since COVID.
Yeah.
It just makes me uncomfortable. And I think a lot of these shitty policies have been shown for what they are, and changes are being made again. But at the end of the day, most people care about is just making money at the expense of their employees.
I think that part being terrible, and I feel like the no health insurance also comes into play, because maybe I could have validated it a bit to my employer if I said I went into my doctor and she's like, you got the flu, you can't go to work for 3 days or something like that. But I can't do that. I just have to be well, I was sick and now I can move, so I guess I got to go to work.
Well, in that case, you're kind of rewarded for minimizing your health.
Oh, absolutely. So they're like, oh, thanks, we didn't have to scramble to find someone to take your shift.
I kind of want to back up a little bit and actually say what minimizing is.
Oh yeah, let's do that to start.
How would you define it?
To say it in a short way, I'd feel like it's invalidating yourself.
Yeah, it's making something seem smaller than it is. And I think
sometimes I think it's reassuring others you do it, to be like, oh, you don't actually have to worry about me. It's okay.
Yeah. The Google definition I just found says minimization is the reduction of something, especially something undesirable, to the smallest possible amount or degree. And immediately I was like, what if I want to minimize my body or myself? Something undesirable.
Well, that was funny. Yeah, when you started to read a Google definition, I was thinking every term, and I was like, oh yeah, I've heard about breast minimization surgery and stuff like
this
that.
This episode is gonna be so triggering. I'm gonna have fun editing this.
Yeah, we're derailing quickly.
One of the words that jumped out at me when I was reading about minimization was guilt. I think a lot of people minimize because they're trying to avoid guilt for taking up space or for vocalizing their needs. Because like I said, society doesn't really reward us for doing that. Anything that causes us to be less productive is, not something that you necessarily want to own.
And I feel like, also like people in general, like they want to know that you're fine so that they don't have to put any extra effort into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Sadly, that is on them that that they have to feel that way. Like if somebody, is having a hard time and you automatically feel like, oh, I got to find a way to fix it so I can feel better. And I'm like, well, that's kind of your problem.
Yeah.
But people don't think of it that way.
No, I mean, I don't really think of it that way. Like, I don't really think a lot about other people minimizing me because I minimize myself so much. Mm-hmm. Like, you talked about minimizing your symptoms, essentially. Right? Yeah. I think I tend to minimize my behaviors. Like, when I was binging and purging every day, I would say, okay, well, I'm not that bad because I'm only purging vegetarian food, for instance. Yes. Or like, I'm drinking every day, but I never drink alone. This is what my goal was in the beginning, to never drink alone, and now I laugh at that. Because I never drink alone, or because I've never gone to work drunk, I don't have a problem. And, of course, towards the end of my alcoholic journey, I would do both of those things. Yeah. And I still didn't feel enough. Like, I still realized it.
I was going to say, once you were doing that, though, didn't you still feel like probably like, oh, yeah, but I'm not doing this.
Exactly.
Maybe I started doing this part.
And we all do this. Like, researching for this episode kind of reminded me of our imposter syndrome episode. Yeah. Because a lot of the same points kind of came up for me, same feelings. Mm-hmm. What about the second half of the question? Like, what would it take to validate it for you?
Yeah, so I added that part on basically because I didn't know. I mean, I was actually like laying in bed trying to get to sleep when I thought of this as a poll. I was like, oh yeah, because I do it all the time. Like, what if we asked everyone else their thoughts on minimizing? And then I asked myself, I was like, what would it take for me not to minimize?
See, you did it too.
I know. We're probably going to do that a lot, warning. But yeah, that just one kind of stopped me. I was like, wow, I don't know. Does anybody else have an answer? So yeah, I think I put it out there out of curiosity. Like, help me.
Yeah, I mean, so we got 2 answers for this poll, which is not, a ton, but I kind of like it when we only get a couple because we can really spend a lot of time on them.
Yeah, we can go in depth.
And we can also talk about our own experiences a little more than usual, which we know we love an opportunity to talk about ourselves. I mean, for me, I always thought that I would not be valid unless I reached this point, and some people might consider this like rock bottom. Like, I thought if I reached quote unquote rock bottom, I would be valid. But the rock bottom, like, I don't like that concept because I feel like it's always changing. Like, I would get to one rock bottom and then be like, okay, this isn't so bad. I can still function. And so then I would keep minimizing and get to a worse bottom. And then, so yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't really know what it would take to validate it.
I've been that same experience is like, what is rock bottom? And I feel like I have to get to rock bottom before I can, start to climb out of it. Like, I have to experience, I have to see where it is. And I mean, I still like struggle with this, but I know something that helped is when it kind of dawned on me, like, no matter what you're dealing with, rock bottom is dead. Yeah. You can't go any further.
You really can't.
Yeah, but you also can't climb out of it. So if that's what I think I'm going to do, then...
So I'm going to be vulnerable for a second. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I think subconsciously one reason I minimize is because I'm concerned with outward appearances. And I do pride myself on being a hard worker because, like we said last week, I see myself as lazy. And so most of my life is just me trying to prove to everyone and myself that I'm not. And so I think I minimize my mental health issues. I'm going to say, like, my eating disorder. Let's use that as an example. I minimized my bulimia. I was severely bulimic while, like, going through the motions of a normal life. And I think one reason I minimized it was because I knew that eventually it would all explode in my face. Because I'm a smart person. I knew it wasn't sustainable, but I kept thinking maybe if I just kind of play it cool, and then all of a sudden, one day I announced that I'm like going to treatment, because that's what I literally did. I was like, maybe then people will be so shocked that I was dealing with this the whole time that I'll feel valid. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does.
Like, I
minimized
makes a lot of sense. I minimized it almost as a way to like surprise people when it all blew up. Like, look at me. I'm struggling. I've been struggling this whole time. I'm valid.
Or, I don't know if you would also feel this way, because I think I've kind of thought of it as, like you keep saying like, yeah, it's fine and I'm getting through and, like nothing's that big a deal. I'm just going to work like normal. I got no problems. Yeah. But if it gets far enough where it's just kind of like you feel like everybody else is starting to realize, and they're just kind of thinking like, when is she going to realize this is something that needs attention?
Yeah.
And then you finally do, and then it's like, and then when you finally do admit it, then it's like, well, now it's okay because everyone's already been wondering this and realizing it's needed.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, the thing that it takes for me to stop minimizing is other people telling me that I'm minimizing. Like, other people validating me through their words and observations. Like, that is often what it takes. Like, it's like tough love, wake up call, whatever you want to call it. Like, that's kind of what's helped me in the past.
And I completely agree with that, because, if we're talking about eating disorder, getting out of control, and going to treatment, my experience, I felt like, was different because I had flown out under the radar for so long. It wasn't until I'm 35 that first became a thing, and that was it too, is because I had flown under the radar and minimized, times when it probably wasn't so hard to get through life, and times where I probably shouldn't have been going it on my own, but still did. Then I just felt like this is my life, and this, nothing is ever going to get so bad that I need to actually face it. But like you said, what did it is, we've talked about this before, the therapist I was seeing was just like, hey girl, you straight up need to go to residential. And I was like, I do what?
Yeah. I had a point, but I forgot. So do you want to read the first comment?
Yes.
So this is from my college friend, Mon. So I met her in Tulsa in 2010. We lived in the quiet dorm together. And okay. So just so you know, if you're a new listener, I went to this Christian school in Oklahoma from 2010 to 2012. And that's essentially where I kind of became a party girl, which is ironic. But when I was living in this dorm with Mon, we were very mild-mannered. And so we would just hang out, go to coffee shops, talk about mental health, because she was studying to be a social worker. And I remember the last year I was there, we both kind of started changing. Oh, Meatball.
Yeah, someone else would like to have a conversation.
I want to have her on the podcast eventually to tell her own story. But yeah, we both went through a lot of really traumatic changes at that school, confronting who we were and what we believed. And I think she has really blossomed in the last 10 years, done a lot of fucking hard work to realize who she is and what is important to her. So yeah, love to have you on the podcast sometime if we get our shit together. But yeah, you want to read her answer?
Yeah. Also, really quick, when I pulled it up, I kept thinking that it said mom's answer.
Mom's answer.
And that was why it threw me, where you asked me, do you want to read it? I was like, you want me to read your mom's answer? Okay. But this makes more sense.
I would want you to read my mom's answer.
Okay, but not that. Your friend Mon. I minimize my progress. Not intentionally, but because I have high standards or I'm a historic perfectionist. I believe it takes practice of being kind to myself and viewing myself through a strengths-based perspective. So I aim to celebrate all wins, no matter how small. Okay, maybe I didn't do X, but I got out of bed and did Y.
I've been finding so much comfort in that idea of just, you don't have to minimize the good stuff, even if they're super, super tiny, that totally deserves to be celebrated too.
Yeah, I was doing that for a while, I know, because I felt just like we talked about last week. I just felt lazy about everything and unmotivated and, yeah, just like a sloth. And so I think I would have ideas, especially like my weekend time, like I'm going to get these big things done. And finally, I started making lists on the weekends, and I would include very small things so that I could get something done. Maybe I just had
Yeah.
to be like, today I'm going to take a shower.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm going to load the dishwasher.
That was my goal yesterday, take a shower.
Yeah. But then I could check it off. I'd be like, look, I did something today.
Exactly.
You get that little quick accomplishment, like, hey, I can check that off.
Yeah, like don't minimize those things. Have you ever heard the word have you ever heard of the term life admin?
No.
So, I saw this in a TikTok the other day, and I really loved it. So basically, like, life admin is all the little things that you need to do to stay on top of your life, like paying your taxes and taking a shower and emptying the dishwasher and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And people with, like, ADHD and anxiety were saying, like, I hate that I have to do life admin when I'm not at work because it feels like work, and I'm stressed and I let it overwhelm me. I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't know, but the term makes sense now.
But yeah, that's
now that you compared it to like work stuff.
Oh yeah, I say that because I want people to realize that it is work.
Yeah.
And it is self-care also, sure. But it is work, and you should be proud of yourself for doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Don't minimize the success of performing those little tasks.
They hire people at jobs just to do that.
Exactly.
Think of people whose job is basically to like greet people at the door and answer the phone. I mean,
Yeah.
someone has to do that.
I mean, when she was talking about minimizing her progress, I thought about recovery because, like, day in and day out, recovery is really boring. And
Yes.
it's a lot of work with not a lot to show for it. And so it's easy to minimize the progress you've made, especially if you're like me and you have a ton of lapses along the way.
I was going to say, particularly, I feel like in the point where you are going through it, but you're not at that, like, glorious moment where you can be like, now I get to be, like, a public speaker and talk about my journey and how successful I am now. It's just kind of like, yeah, I'm working at it, and some days it still kind of sucks.
It's a long game, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, now, of course, I can look back and see myself as having improved a lot, and I'm in a totally different place than I was even a year ago.
Yeah.
But when I'm in the middle of it, it feels like I'm not accomplishing anything, and I haven't progressed. And so I love her comment because it's just a nice reminder to look at yourself through your strengths. She used the term strengths-based perspective. Like, looking, instead of finding all the little weaknesses about yourself to complain about, just look at the good things and maybe don't minimize them.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mon, for sending that in.
Yeah.
You're really cool.
And come be a guest, because it sounds like, you'd be a good one.
Yeah, I promise this is the year we're going to start trying to have guests again. Maybe. I don't know. It's scary to talk about it, because now we have to do it.
I feel like so many things come up on our podcast where I repeatedly think that my friend Stacy would be such a good guest, and I want to talk to her, and I know that she's having some hard times, and I don't know, I felt like maybe that would be a nice little bright spot, because I think she did a podcast for a while, so I feel like
really?
she kind of likes that stuff. Yeah.
Oh my god, I want to know what it was called, but I don't want you to, like, dox her or anything.
No, I don't remember what it was called, but I can say, like, they talked about, like, paranormal things, and yeah.
Huh. Well, yeah. The more fucked up you are, the more welcome you will be on this podcast.
Absolutely.
That's all I have to say about that. Okay, are you ready for Orion's voicemail?
Yep, let me load it real quick. Okay, I'm ready.
Hello, hosts. I hope you guys are having a good week. It's Orion popping on to give a few thoughts on your pickle pull prompt. And I had a little bit of trouble getting into this thoughts because my first thought was minimizing my troubles, or people who minimize their troubles to get by. And I don't think I really do that because I tend to fixate on my troubles. What I minimize is like the everyday components that make up my stability and comfort. like the freedom and happiness and things I take for granted that I have access to. Like I have access to good food, a clean home, my privacy, my ability to interact with people I trust and people I enjoy, my hobbies, my interests, my apartment, my job, my family, my gorgeous friends, and my own mind. I need to have more gratitude for my own mind because it has been put through so much terrible shit and learned so much and grown so strong through a lot of determination and hard work. I put a lot behind me, and I've made a future for myself, and I have a lot of people to thank for that, including me. And I think that I just completely take that for granted most of the time in my mind. And I find myself invalidating this so often by losing sight of the big picture of all that, by fixating on little details of the day-to-day, on like whatever today's silly little tasks and concerns are. Oh, am I going to make this appointment? Oh, I've got to go do that thing that's uncomfortable. Oh my God, I'm probably forgetting to email somebody back and they're going to be mad at me. Oh, and I got to see that person I don't like. So my thoughts are just stuck on like a hell wheel, and I got to kind of jolt out of it with like a mantra or something. Sometimes I repeat, you are safe, you are loved, you are cared for, you are strong, etc. Like stuff like that. Just sort of act out the feeling of gratitude to slow down the anxiety. Because I think I minimize the things that I'm truly grateful for to distance myself from the thought that I either deserve good things or that I've earned them or that people care for me enough to give them to me. And that scares me because I live with the perpetual feeling that I'm always doing something wrong. Like that OCD urge, that feeling that things are only okay because I maintain a constant level of fear and uncertainty. Like I can never just be satisfied with what I am naturally, because naturally what I am is not enough. It's not that I don't have enough or I'm not doing enough, but I'm not enough. And if I, as myself, am never enough, like that void will never be filled with, even if I accomplish and receive everything I've ever dreamed of, I'm never going to be happy with it. I will just continue to minimize everything that I accomplish on every level I get to, unless I'm okay with myself and I allow myself to be and allow everything else to be, then I will never really feel validated. I will never feel like at peace. And peace is gratitude. Like validation is appreciation. And yeah, sometimes we really have to slow down and realize it's okay to maximize the joys, the little things, even if you feel like you could have done better. Because in reality, you can't be doing better. I'm doing the best I can at this moment. I am the best that I could be at this moment, and I'm better than I was, and I will be better than I am if I have confidence in that, and if I maintain awareness of everything it took to get here and everything that is going on around me, and not to fixate on the things that I imagine to be wrong, but to not minimize everything that is going right for me right now. And yeah, I have troubles, but I have joys, and I don't want to say blessings because, you know, but we have joys and we have troubles, but I can survive those because I've survived everything I've been through in the past. And so I know that everything I need is already inside of me. Everything I need is already around me. I just have to remember it. And that's a practice. And that's important. So, yeah, keep pursuing meaning, pursuing love. Don't minimize the good things. Don't fixate on the troubles, because everything comes and goes. But you will remain. You are enough. And, okay, well, I hope that was relevant. Okay, I think I'm done. Okay, bye.
Oh, that sounds like how I would sign off on everything.
I think I'm done.
Am I done?
We end every episode of this podcast.
I think so. Bye. Yeah.
First of all, I have a million thoughts. But first of all, did you know that my middle name is Joy?
No.
Yeah. So, as you may or may not know, listener, I was raised in a very Christian household, and most of us are named after Bible verses, or we have like life verses that our parents picked out for us that influenced our names. Mm-hmm. I don't remember exactly what mine is, but I just know it is about like having the joy of Christ in you, because my name is Christina Joy, and so I'm literally named after a Bible verse. So, Ryan, I thought you would enjoy that.
By the time you were my age, then the standard, I guess, if you were Catholic, was to make sure that your child's middle name was a saint.
Oh, I don't really know a bunch of Catholics, but that sounds about right.
Well, a lot of my classmates, I know their middle name was Marie, and that's, going Mary. Yeah.
There was a homeschool family in Chicago so for the first... my senior year was the only year I spent in high school, but I was homeschooled the rest of the time. And so the extent of my social circle were these two homeschooling families that lived in our neighborhood. One of them had 4 girls that were the same ages as us, because I have 3 sisters. Mm-hmm. And then the other one was a Catholic family that had 11 children. I think they might have had 13 by the end. I don't know.
Oh my God.
But so we hung out with them a lot. It was wild. Truly wild. Mm-hmm. What a time to be alive. The other thing that, like, jumped out at me right away was this image when he was talking of someone on their deathbed, and they're thinking back on their life. And I kept thinking, like, do you really want to wait until the end of your life to celebrate your wins?
Absolutely.
Like, that's what I was thinking, because I can see myself doing that, just minimizing all the good things and thinking, okay, the next thing will make me feel better. And then it never does. And then I'm at the end of my life, and I've minimized all the good things. Like, that's not how I want to live.
Yeah, then if you have to go back and be like, wow, like actually when I was feeling the best was when I was 35, but I kept thinking that it wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Oh my God. I wasted so much time like that. I think back on the years that I was stressed out and sad for like other reasons, and I think, wow, I was actually doing pretty okay, and I didn't appreciate it. But that's all I have to say for now. I feel like I've been talking a ton. What notes do you have on this wonderful voicemail?
So one thing I liked is I felt like he ended up going into a lot of maximization versus minimization.
Yeah, that's something we could really get into.
And yeah, one that really stood out to me is saying that he felt like mostly that he maximized what you should be doing, who you should be, versus, maximizing like what you've actually accomplished and what you've done, which is what we should be maximizing instead of, like maximizing things that make us feel worse about ourselves.
Well, yeah, because one exists and one doesn't.
Yeah, that's...
like when you're maximizing the things that you think should be, you're pouring your energy into something that hasn't happened or is guaranteed to happen. Like, all you have is what's in your life right now.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I can see where if all you're thinking about is like, why haven't I done this? Why haven't I been this? Then that's what you do, is you end up minimizing what you have done because clearly it's not good enough. All you can think about is, I should be this.
I mean, we've talked about careers on this podcast a bunch. We've both had quite non-linear career paths / continue to have non-linear career paths.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to minimize all of the professional wins that we've had because there's always someone more successful, quote unquote, to compare ourselves to.
Yeah. And something else, I'm not even sure if I know like the entire point that he was making. I just like latched on and wrote in huge capital letters the word deserving, because I could do a whole nother episode just on that. I have done like so much therapy work just like around that word, basically, because I struggle with it so much.
I mean, yeah, tell me a little bit more about that. Where do you think that comes from, that idea that you don't deserve good things?
I think it's like a big thing is it's me, how I feel about myself, I imagine, and projecting it onto other people, because I have a big problem with people saying things where, like if you could say, oh, I have been driving like old crappy vehicles around all my life, so I deserve this new car. I'm like, no one deserves a car just because they didn't have the best thing in the past. I mean, you should. It's great to like give yourself a treat. There's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, you don't actually like.
But you're using the example of a car. I think the thing that you should be asking yourself is like, why don't I think I deserve mental stability? Because I've been mentally unstable most of my life. That's what I'm used to. Your mental health is your beat up car in this situation.
Maybe a better example, because it would relate more to like at least your well-being or something, is if somebody says like, I deserve a day off. And it's the same thing to me, is I feel like I don't think you should bar yourself from having a day off, but I don't know. It's the word deserve that gets to me. I do when I like really examine that, then I was like, oh, I think it's because I feel that way myself, that I think like I can allow myself, I can grace myself this time off, but I don't deserve it just because I've gone through life like a normal human being like everyone else. I mean, it's kind of like, what did I do special?
Yeah, that voice can be really loud sometimes. I also wrote down a note about that because I think his example was minimizing was kind of like a coping mechanism or like a protective measure that he used to keep from facing the fact that he does deserve things. Like, that's a really hard thing to admit. Like you just said, it can come across as selfish. So when you minimize things, it's easier because you're saying, I don't deserve good things. And so when I don't get them, I'm not disappointed or I'm not surprised. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can you relate to that?
Yeah. Because I think that also ties into a kind of similar thing for me. I've noticed if there's something that just like is a personality thing that maybe kind of annoys me in someone else, like, like I don't necessarily like to see that, then I get afraid that people are going to see me the same way, and I just bend over backwards to not ever be seen. Like I will do the exact opposite, like never think this about me because I thought this person was mildly annoying for that.
Yeah. This whole conversation is also reminding me of the episode we did on toxic positivity.
Okay.
Because, I like to play the devil's advocate on this podcast because our brains are the devil.
Our brains are a little broken sometimes.
And so when I heard his voicemail the first time, I know in my head that I'm supposed to maximize? Jesus. That's even better. I know I'm supposed to maximize the good things, but also part of me was thinking, okay, but like life isn't all sunshine and rainbows. I can celebrate the wins all I want, but I don't know, if I only be positive and only celebrate myself, then I don't want that either. That's just like toxic positivity. And again, that's not necessarily true. That's just what a lot of us will think, I think.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing. I think it's similar to, I feel like what I was just saying, that you get afraid like, oh my gosh, am I going to be seen as one of those toxic positive people? I don't want to be that.
But I think the key difference is that Orion was focusing on real, tangible things in his life that he has either earned or manifested or that is inarguable. That word that you used last episode that I couldn't think of to save my life, it was inarguable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like, I think the difference between toxic positivity and like the kind of positivity that Orion is describing is just like toxic positivity gives you something that is just not real, that the standard is unrealistic. But I think what he's talking about is just appreciating the real things that are in your life.
Yeah, because I know another thing I jotted down, and I don't know if I have thoughts or like expansion on it or anything like that. I think I just wrote it down because it's really fucking hard, is having gratitude for yourself.
So what does gratitude for yourself look like these days?
Oh, I don't know, because I don't have it right now.
I mean,
I know, I feel like this is kind of like a cliche thing that, people can say, but I do like try to remind myself every once in a while, like it's good that I am in a place where I am able to work. I'm able to do a job that can support myself, and there's people that can't do that.
And you're in, for the most part, you're able to leave work and leave it behind. At least that's something you're working on. I know that's hard for a lot of people.
And I mean, the being able to support myself, that's a big thing, I think, because I've always been a super independent person, and there's been a lot of times where, I've had to, like, maybe I'm living on my own, but I have to come back and tell my parents, like, I'm just not making enough money to cover the rent. Can you help me out? So just knowing that I'm secure enough that I can take care of all my own basic needs without having to come back to someone and being like, help me.
Well, and even in the times where we couldn't take care of ourselves, like you asking your parents to help you with rent, that is also something to celebrate, is asking for help. And,
yes.
Finding creative solutions to get yourself out of that predicament. I think when we have had non-linear career paths and struggled with our mental health our whole lives, it's easy to downplay, minimize the things we've had to do just to survive. Like maybe we don't have careers like other people we've known. Maybe we don't make enough money or have health insurance or like whatever, but we are alive. We've gotten ourselves to this point through whatever means necessary. And that's definitely something to maximize. I said it right.
Yeah. Like you said about asking for help, that is a big thing, like realizing you're at a point where you can't do it on your own. I agree.
Yeah. I don't know. This is really encouraging me to really maximize the good things in my life. Like this whole conversation didn't really go as I was expecting. I was kind of expecting more of it to be about like our trauma, like minimizing our trauma or minimizing our symptoms, like you were talking about earlier. And we've talked about that a lot on the podcast, but I love that our listeners this week really turned the attention to celebrating the good things in your life. Like I didn't realize I was minimizing that stuff until I heard this feedback, and now I have a lot to think about. I don't know if I have anything else to say, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like I've got it.
I feel like afterwards I'll listen to this and I'll have a billion points that I didn't bring up.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
And I also feel like we could talk more about like what you said, but I almost kind of like don't want to go back and rehash like, yeah, we minimize all this stuff.
Yeah. It's pretty
I think I said minimalize again.
Minimalize? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You guys know what we mean.
Exactly.
But thank you to Mon and Orion for answering the pickle poll. If you missed this one, don't worry. We do these every 2 weeks. Follow us on Instagram at Pickles and Vodka Podcast to make sure that you are part of the next one.
Yeah.
And where else can people find us, Lauren?
Oh, I believe they can find us on Twitter at Pickles Vodka.
You cut out for a second. Can you repeat that again?
Twitter at Pickles Vodka.
You sounded worse than you did when you cut off. Yeah, Pickles Vodka on Twitter. My personal Instagram is at xtinajumper.
Sorry. I was staring at my vape. Just kind of like zoning out. Yeah. My Instagram that I answer is at Pico Suave, PICOSAUVE.
Yeah, so follow us. I want to read a message from an old friend that I got last week. Remember when I said I had some good feedback I wanted to share and I never did it?
Oh, yeah.
So this is it. So a few weeks ago, I sent a friend request to this guy that used to be my camp counselor at this Christian school. School. It was like a Christian camp in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And so he was one of my counselors. And so I saw him in my suggested friends, and I friended him. And then he sent me this message. So this is from Josh. Shout out to Josh. Just wanted to drop in and say it was wild to see your friend request pop up, and I'm thrilled to see you're doing important and exciting shit. Subscribe to your podcast, and I just downloaded the first few episodes. Excited to get into it. Keep kicking ass and saying important things.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And then I said, hi, my shit really feels important and exciting, but, thanks for the validation. And then he went on to say, like, he's been a therapist for a few years now. He has, and he has his own mental health stuff with depression and self-harm and trauma. And I think, like, when we knew each other, we talked about it a little bit, but not a ton. He was one of those people that I could always tell there was something going on mental health-wise, but, like, we didn't talk about it because there was so much stigma back then. But yeah, he said, I finished the first episode on my commute. Love what you're doing. People talking openly about mental health and being willing/unafraid to sit in the shitty suck of it is so valuable, and you do a great job of it. I'm excited to be a fan now.
Oh,
I No, so shout out goes to Josh for that sweet message. That stuff just really helps me keep going, you know?
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, the part of it, like, when he said keep saying important things that I didn't even realize until I heard that. I was like, that's what we do. That's what we do. That's the point. I'm so glad to be recognized for that. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to end out with that is just to inspire you and myself to not minimize the things that we're doing with this podcast, for instance. Mm-hmm. You know, some people think what we have to say is important, and
people are clearly getting some good out of it. And...
Yeah. Yeah. So, validation.
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Okay.
Everyone follow us, and we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.